She's been one of the vocal front-facing personalities during our recent election cycle. And in this special episode, we have a conversation with opposition senator attorney Karina Goodridge. She speaks on youth unemployment, she speaks on youth crime, and also her vision for third parties in Barbados. This is 1-1. I'm Michonne Robinson. Good evening to you all across Barbados. This evening we're having a conversation with one of the newest faces to our upper house, Senator Karina Goodridge. Senator Goodridge, welcome to the program. We're happy to have you on one-on-one this evening.
Yes, thank you so much, Ms. Sharon, for having me. It's so much of a pleasure to be here with you today.
You are most welcome. You're known for your outstanding tactics, speaking on the political platform, and you've made a name for yourself as one of the young women within the political arena in one of the upcoming political parties.
Yes.
In your work as a new senator, you're in a room where you are outnumbered to some degree, but how are you ensuring that your presence is felt and that we are actually seeing representation as an independent senator?
Well, for sure, I am making sure that my voice is heard, and I'm also making sure that I represent the voice of the people. So I will also be the people's voice every opportunity that I get. And I'm not a woman who is silent on how I feel. I am very outspoken and I'm not changing who I am. So I would always be authentically me.
What do you think contributed to you having to fight, to advocate, to lobby for, to fight on behalf of, in terms of your home story and growing up?
Well, to tell you the truth, it's a hard feeling. You see, I love to give service and I love to represent people who I believe have a challenge in representing themselves. So wherever I can, be patriotic and add value to country, I honestly put my best foot forward and I tell myself, I got to represent people. So it's a inner thing. And to me, it is a calling also from God when he puts that within me to be a woman who is bold and not afraid to speak out.
Would you say there are any elements coming up? You are a former student of the Gordon Seeley Memorial School, former the Garrison Secondary School.
Yeah.
And you've had tremendous family support from your two sisters, being the youngest, your mom as well. How do you think growing up has contributed to who we see today in terms of an independent senator, really?
Well, to tell you the truth, my mom was a great support. My mom was the one who had, quote unquote, a big job. She was a general worker, and she always told me that she wanted her children to do better than she did. So having heard those words and wanting to add value to my family line and to really push, I wanted to make my mother proud and my family proud equally. And I also wanted to ensure that I could be a greater example for any of my younger family members who are coming up.
What do you think it says about Barbados in terms of the confidence that people have entrusted in you? You've come from a fringe party, General Secretary being Steve Blackett, one of the former members of the Frondel Stewart administration. So what does it say to you that Barbadians have showed you this vote of confidence?
I mean, it is a really great feeling, and I am humbled by it that Barbadians would want to see a young person like myself, who I would call the underdog now rising, that they would, support this and support me, seeing that I am a fresh face. I'm very glad that in this season that Barbadians are calling for someone who really is a fresh face, new blood to be a part of the political arena.
And how is it going so far in terms of the Senate and what you're hoping to bring about in terms of change and so forth?
Well, for sure, I just got my feet wet and things are going well so far. There's still a lot of work to do. The work has now started, so I know that I'm going to be stretched, but for sure, I'm willing to be stretched.
Senator Garrett, now you've outlined some of your hopes and what brought you to this particular point. What are some of the policies we can actually hear you focusing on and advocating for on behalf of young Barbadians, female entrepreneurs, and people who are looking for that opposition voice?
But you see, Friends of Democracy actually has a number of policy positions. One of them we spoke about is the coconut water vendor villages for the coconut men, where we would provide, the facilities for them and give them a place where, they would put all of the coconut husks and so on in one particular area. And I believe that that itself would be good for tourism, where people could come to Barbados and see some nice coconut water vendor villages. One of the other policies that we have been pushing and advocating for, of course, you've heard the VAT war, that's what they call it. I said that, we wanted the VAT to be removed from food, certain food items, and we would still advocate for that, and also the flyover policy. And of course, you know that you wouldn't say that you just have to jump into it and have the flyovers done without the proper consultation and finding out how much money it will cost and ensuring that the roads are done properly, so to ensure that you don't have any incidents or accidents based on the road infrastructure being done poorly. So those are considerations for policies. And another one that I, conceptualized was a way that we can help young women in terms of women who would need funding, more funding apart from welfare. When it comes to single parents needing funding, that is something that I believe that the government could look into and, stretch their arms and ensure that more funding is granted for single women.
What do you say to those people out there who would be saying that you are an independent senator, yes, but it's quite possible you could be within the bosom of government? What do you say to those naysayers?
But they say opposition senator really is the title. And within the bosom of government, I've seen it happen before with people, but I would say, even from where I am now, I have come to help Barbados. So by extension, that is me helping the government. Whether they title me as opposition senator or not, as long as you say senator and I have work to do in parliament, then I would be there representing Barbados. So they don't have to worry about the title, whether it's opposition or BLP senator. Look at my work and judge that.
What are some of those important projects you would have worked on that Barbadians can say, this is the track record of opposition Senator Goodridge?
In terms of projects, I would say most of my projects I would work on in the background. That would be doing some women's conferences, women empowerment. I would have spent a lot of time speaking with women, empowering them, and some of my outreach would be in helping people who really didn't have the funds to pay for legal matters. So even though it wasn't something that was publicized greatly, it was something of value that really helped a number of people in the country.
In terms of what's happening on the international scene, are you carrying general concerns of what's happening in the US and the UK? And what's your encouragement for Barbadians generally, even with what's happening further afield?
Oh, yes, I would like to encourage Barbadians by telling them, keep abreast with what is going on internationally. Don't for one second think that because something is happening in the United States of America that it cannot affect you. Because we've seen what has happened with COVID, with that situation. We're watching the TV 1 minute and we're seeing what's happening in China, and then it came to our doorstep. So keep abreast and always remember that unity is important, and we must focus on things that can affect us globally, and we have to be always preparing. I always tell people, don't wait until something happens to prepare. Put things in place, put the policies in place if you can, and put every single mechanism that could help the country. You have to be advocating for that to be put in place so that if we have some kind of national emergency, we can't say, okay, well, we didn't put anything in place in case this or that happened. So we have to be constantly in preparation mode.
How do you feel about the work of Prime Minister Motley, even as she's carrying out, particular diplomatic missions and that type of thing?
I would say that Miss Motley is really trying her best as PM right now. Of course, there would be room for criticisms where certain things may not bring the positive result or the result that we're looking for. But I believe that she has shown that she is open to hearing the voice of the people, even on our campaign, some of the things that we argued about, we can see now that the government is giving consideration to those matters.
I know I just asked about what's happening further afield in terms of diplomatic missions by our Prime Minister, but how do you feel about the performance of the Barbadian economy right at this time in 2026?
Well, I always answer those questions based on the complaints of the people. And there are still people here who would say that even though nationally we are hearing that the economy is doing very well, some of them are not really feeling it in their households. So I believe that, as time progresses and a lot of other policies unfold where persons are getting more help and more assistance from government, then I believe that there would be a positive turn. Well, in terms of having that economic help, sorry.
There are a number of infrastructural projects taking place in Barbados, from the Royalton to the Indigo Hotel on the South Coast.
Yes.
And the government oftentimes argues that with these infrastructural projects, money is circulating within the economy where tourism is concerned, our main GDP earner. What's
Yes.
your word of encouragement to people or young people who are looking for employment who may feel excluded from, what's happening in terms of some of these projects?
Well, I would hope that, they're not just waiting and expecting to wait on tourism because even though tourism, yes, is our bread and butter, I believe that we need to expand, especially based on the fact that there can be global shocks, right, which can affect the economy. I want that young people could explore other jobs online, empower themselves. There are many young people who would get jobs from Canada and other countries. Like, we are in a time now where opportunities are more available. And I would always encourage the government to create more unique opportunities for our people because a lot of people now are becoming more technical. It's not that I'm saying that people can read or write, but some people are more hands-on in terms of learning outside of just reading books and then having the usual jobs like doctor, lawyer, what's not, or working as a chef. Persons now want to be like game producers or we're using AI. All of those things are new and those opportunities are available online also.
Mm-hmm. And even while you made mention of this encouragement in terms of how we can type of diversify the job offerings,
Yes.
what are some of the complaints you're hearing on the ground, Senator?
Yes, of course, because some students, especially from, say, the university, they may have a unique degree. And when they exit the university, they're at home, say, for a year. And that is why you need government to diversify and have those opportunities available where those persons don't just feel as though they did a degree and then when they come out, they have to ask themselves, why did I do that degree? I can't find a job in that particular area. So we need to consider having some other openings in the other unique areas outside of, say, lawyers, doctors, nurses, chefs. We need to have some positions opening that will suit other persons with the unique degrees that they carry.
You feel as if it's part of like a bigger problem in terms of flexibility of mindset. A student who may have studied international relations or political science and sitting down at home because they have not gotten a job. Do you feel as if young people need to think more flexibly in terms of what they study at university, or do you feel as if it's an issue in terms of what's available where the job market is concerned?
Yeah, I think the issue is what's available and it's the culture here. We mostly focus on having the government pay for our tuition, But then that's the job of UE, making sure that you get your degree. But then who's going to ensure that when you get your degree, that there's a job available for you? So we really need to expand the job market. And I think that that is something that the government should take into consideration to expand the market and have some other jobs available for the younger people who did some of these unique degrees.
One of your major focus, now you talk about expanding the job market, was actually female entrepreneurship, empowering
Yes,
single
yes.
mothers, empowering women in business. Where do you stand now in terms of what you're suggesting where female entrepreneurship and women in business is concerned? And how do we strike that balance even for men in business who may be supporting women?
But I can tell you, I find that women are very focused, and women many a time are bosses.
You mean within the Barbadian context?
Oh, yes. A lot of women, they're not very laid back and not very dependent on men these days. I find that times have changed. Women are getting up. Women are ensuring that they register their businesses. They're opening companies and they are really pushing ahead. We have a female prime minister and we have more women like myself, even in politics. So we are not waiting now for no man to feed us. A lot of times, I know it still happens, but I can tell you that the majority of women now, they are getting up and they are fending for themselves.
Senator Goodridge, when we come back, we're going to touch on youth where the crime situation is concerned.
Yes, no problem.
We'll be right back with more of this conversation with Opposition Senator Karina Goodridge. Please stay with us.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Danielle Reed Melillo and I'm a general physician. Today we're going to have a casual talk about HIV and AIDS. HIV is human immunodeficiency virus and AIDS is acquired immunodeficiency syndrome. When HIV is left untreated, it becomes AIDS. HIV is spread locally, mainly by sexual contact, but can also be spread by vertical transmission, which is from mother to child if untreated. The virus attacks the body's white blood cells, which makes it easier to catch infections that a person with a normal immune system would usually fight off. The virus is contracted by contact with infected bodily fluids, such as blood, semen, vaginal or rectal fluids, or breast milk from an infected person. It is not spread by hugs, sharing food, swimming pools, or toilet seats. There is PrEP and PEP available. PrEP is pre-exposure prophylaxis and PEP is post-exposure prophylaxis. And these are pills that can be used for prevention in certain instances. HIV is treated with antiretroviral drugs, which makes you undetectable and stops the spread. So please, use protection, stop the stigma, and get tested today.
Welcome back to this edition of One on One. We're having a conversation with Opposition Senator Karina Goodridge. Senator Goodridge, what do you think is the single most important factor or the single most factor driving youth crime right now in Barbados? We've been hearing so many complaints and stern warnings on TV8 from the Commissioner of Police, Richard Boyce, as well, where youth crime is concerned and crime being on the up. So what do you think is really driving this at this time?
Well, you see, the commissioner spoke for himself and he did say that retaliation happens in the country and it is now recognized that Barbados is being faced with a gang issue. But I know that the issues here in the country when it comes to youth are very multifactorial. It is not only one area which causes these youngsters to be involved in crime, because sometimes it could be family instability also, where, parenting could be an issue too, because of course, sometimes a lot of young men just grow up in a broken family. Some of these young people, they suffer with anger issues some of them feel hopeless, and some of them think that there are no better opportunities out there for them. So when they are faced with things like unemployment, they go down the wrong road and path. And when they don't have mentorship, sufficient mentorship, then of course they choose to follow the wrong crowd.
But then, if we are looking at instances where men come from well-off society and they choose to be a part of the retaliations where crime is concerned, how do we solve those particular issues? And I know you're not the
Yes.
commissioner of police. I know you are one of our youngest
Mhm.
senators, but what do you think can be a suggestion in terms of that feedback loop?
Well, I would say that we have to continuously educate them. And I think that we need to speak to them. I think many times what people do wrong is that they make an appeal to the perpetrators of crime to just hand themselves in. But I think sometimes they have to speak to their mind, speak to their hearts. They have to lower their voices and try to communicate with them before, even if they have a record, before they commit a crime. They have to honestly seek out these young men and mentor them. Because many a time, when people commit crimes, they are re-offenders. And I think that rehabilitation would help a lot more. And also carrying some of the ones who haven't committed a crime. Young people who are in schools, do more prison visitation and give them a more realistic idea of what being a prisoner is like. Because culture, habits can make some people think that being a bad man or a bad woman is cool. But when you get to understand a reality, in reality that when you visit a prison, there are persons who are incarcerated and want to come out. They don't love the meals that they receive daily. They don't love the bed that they sleep on. They don't love the treatment in there. So they need to have a realistic view. And when they have that, perhaps they will change their mind and think twice before committing a crime.
How hopeful are you with the new ministry that we have, where Attorney Michael Lashley, well, Senior Minister Michael Lashley, is serving in where criminal justice is concerned?
Yes, I think that that is a positive move. He has a wealth of knowledge when it comes to dealing with criminal law, and he would have met a lot of offenders. So I believe that using that knowledge, he could weigh the pros and cons, and he could actually add value to the ministry. He's a former Garrisonian, and I knew him for a long time, and I know that he could add value when it comes to dealing with the crime and dealing with youngsters because that is his experience, over all of these long years. And as time went by, he dealt with them on the other side, yes, as a defense attorney, but he can also understand, as I said before, their mind and the way how they are thinking, and equally find a way that, he can help to prevent these youngsters to stop these crimes.
In terms of these retaliations, do you believe that poverty is actually a perpetrator of criminal activity, or is it something more that we're missing out on?
I know that it is something more, but I do believe so that poverty can push people to commit crimes. Because I know youngsters and I know their mindset. And when they are in needs and there's no one there to help them, when no one is mentoring you, sometimes you go down the wrong road and you make the wrong choices.
Mm-hmm. Speaking to the power of mentorship, let's delve into that a little bit more.
Yes. So in terms of mentorship, I believe that parents could also play a part. The church can play a part. And we also need the help from the community. We need all hands on deck where we can have, leaders in the community, prominent leaders in the community come and help some of the youngsters. We need to have the town hall meetings and the community programs where it is not just a one-off speech where we are talking to the young people. This needs to be something consistent.
Yeah.
And we need to be persistent in reaching the minds of these people to really help them to turn away from crime, even the thought of crime. We need to definitely mentor them. And we have to ensure too that when we're dealing with rehab, that we are ensuring that opportunities are there for these youngsters after they pass out of these programs, and after they spend some time, even if it's for a petty crime, should I say, that we have opportunities there for them after that.
Do you feel part of the answer for you being a faith-based woman is actually spirituality, being grounded, having something to comfort you, finding purpose?
Yes, I think so. I think that we need to remind them of their purpose, and that there are opportunities, and they have to know how to find them. Because sometimes there are opportunities available, but sometimes people don't know how to reach them. There are still people here who don't know how to do a proper curriculum vitae. They don't know how to do a proper CV. And that's why we need the workshops that can show people what the human resource managers are looking for. So all of these things will come with training, community programs, workshops, town hall meetings, so that you can get feedback from the same young people. We have to be data driven. We can't just sit and believe that we know what they're thinking. We have to get feedback directly from the horse's mouth, and we have to know exactly what is driving these young people to make the wrong choices and what could actually help them. So we need to be in their faces to hear from them.
Mm-hmm. Speaking of opportunity, you just said something interesting, that there are numerous opportunities sometimes, but young people don't know how to reach those opportunities. Do you consider Barbados a place of opportunity where the Caribbean is concerned? I mean, there's so many persons leaving Guyana and other parts of the Caribbean coming to Barbados for opportunity and then fleeing to somewhere else. But
Yes.
where do you sit on that particular topic?
And I mean, equally, there are people who would come here definitely for opportunities and find them. So I believe that sometimes people need to look around and search more. There's Google, and they also have to network. So sometimes people just sit in their room, and as I said, some of them have poor CVs. So when they send a CV to some of the companies look at the CV, the HR managers would look at the CV and then turn a blind eye to it. So opportunities are here, but I do think that in Barbados, we need to advertise more. We shouldn't have to just go on Barbados job market. I believe that there's a need for those opportunities to be easily found by the young people so that they know for sure what is being offered. Because it's not every young person who would open the newspaper to see a job. So we have to ensure that young people can find what they're looking for.
Mm-hmm. What role do you think the private sector should play in terms of providing some of these opportunities? Oftentimes, there are internships coming out of the Barbados Community College and University of the West Indies as well. But young people sometimes say, I've not had the chance to intern, I've not had the chance to find gainful employment within the private sector. But I'm sure there's an important role that the sector plays as well.
Yes, for sure. You hit the nail on the head when you said internship, because I think that the internship opportunities are great. I think that greater funding, if they could provide the funding so to help young people who are not very but driven, but they're very technical and hands-on, I think we need to also provide opportunities in that area for young people. On my campaign previously, we talked about sports being a business, and we need not forget young people who, outside of the usual academics, are very skillful in terms of sports. That is something that I would love to see the private sector actually fund and support the younger folk, in that area, because I know that some companies do provide funding, but we need to see it happening here more often.
If you could fund one community initiative tomorrow, now that you're mentioning the financing of things, what would it be, Senator Goodridge?
I would actually fund a recreational activity for young people in the communities. And I must add, I honestly would love to have funding to support women empowerment. Whatever it can do to empower women who would have been shattered because of domestic violence, I would love to have a program and have it funded so that then I could help to empower women to be stronger, to be more confident, to be bolder, and to believe that they are definitely overcomers.
Mhm. What do you think has contributed to your interest in wanting to empower Barbadian women generally?
I like to see women being on top. And being in this country and seeing a woman such as Rihanna, we have one of the biggest pop stars, and I want to see other women follow in those footsteps to become international, to become household voices, to become household names, to be known worldwide, and to just see women from Barbados reach to that level. That would be amazing because also that puts the country on the map at a higher level. We will be recognized globally. So it's not only in the area of song and music, but I want to see women here become entrepreneurs, business women, even women who would do makeup and be known internationally as one of the best makeup artists or one of the best models coming out of Barbados. So really, generally, I just want to see women in the country make it to the top level representing Barbados.
Do you have any consideration for our men as well? Some may argue that the women in Barbados are doing exceptionally at the level
Yes.
of tertiary education. I don't know if you feel as if the education system is failing our boys to some degree, many of them being involved within, gang activity and criminal activity. So what does that balance look like in terms of what you hope to see for our young men as well?
Well, I want to see young men do equally well. And the education system could do more for the young men. And that's a whole long story because I also believe too that if we have more male tutors, kind of doing more hands-on training and teaching for these young men, because sometimes when a man says something to a man, it hits deeper than when a woman is saying it. So in the education system too, I want them to recognize that some men are not very academic. Some of them have very unique skills, and we need to make room for them. We need to start back boot camp as part of the educational system. Have more training sessions where men recognize their skills, they discover their skills, and they turn away from doing any negative activity and turn towards, boosting their lifestyle and dreaming bigger. I don't want men to be led astray where they believe that they have to commit a crime to be a big name or be a household name, but to do something great in the community or globally, internationally, to be known, to be well known. Why not aim to be a national hero? Why aim to be a perpetrator of a crime?
Taking a pivot from what you've just said, what do you think are some of the biggest barriers where gender equality is concerned locally?
I would say that the focus sometimes of the people is the greatest barrier, the mindset. When you have a mindset where we already in our culture believe that women already dominate, I can tell you that that's where the problem starts. We shouldn't do that. We have to be data driven if we're going to do that. And I know that many times people will say, oh, females dominate, but if you show me the statistics, then I will shut up and say, okay, well, fine. But I think that educating men more would actually help them.
Barbados is a predominantly matriarchal society.
Yes.
What role do you think women can play in terms of empowering our young men? Do you feel as if mothers are to blame, sisters are to blame?
Well, I can tell you that I think that we, as a woman, women can put on conferences, and I wouldn't feel anyway if women put on a male conference, because if the men aren't doing it, then we have to take a step, put on a male conference, invite some of the greatest males to that conference, and allow those men who are businessmen, who are powerful men in society, who are leaders in society, to then use that conference to empower the younger men and to guide them. So even if it is us as a woman, we are just putting on that conference, it will still benefit the males. And yes, sometimes the problem could start at home because a mother is the first teacher. So if a mother doesn't teach her son the right things, then of course he's not going to be brought up in a positive light. But equally, if a mother teaches her son well, teaches him value, teaches him integrity, and teaches him how to be honest and how to push ahead and be the best of himself, then the results would be a positive one. So there you can see, based on what I just said, how then a mother can impact the outcome of her child's life, whether male or female.
Absolutely. I believe
Yeah.
this is a perfect pivot. No, you're talking about building and constructing. In this following segment, we're going to focus on some of the issues that landlords face, young people accessing mortgages in Barbados, and also issues with tenants as well, Senator
Yes.
Goodridge.
Okay.
We'll be right back with more of this one-on-one with Opposition Senator Karina Goodridge. Please stay with us.
When we look at what we're tracking, it's community outreach. We made an ambitious goal of 10,000 service hours this year, and so far we've surpassed that goal by being able to partner with organizations like the Heart and Stroke Foundation Barbados and the Barbados Association of Medical Practitioners to get into the community, do screening, and impart knowledge about communicable diseases and obesity. You can funnel that through your class representative to the Vice President and President of the MSA, who liaise with the management of faculty to ensure that all of your problems are solved.
The Faculty of Medical Sciences will be hosting their Open and Taster Week starting the week of April 13, 2026. I would say the community involvement credit, which is available via our Instagram link.
Students should join the MSA because it is a building block for their career. It is where they make decisions at a faculty level, a community level, even a committee level, and even a global level. And where can you find us? You can find us on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and even TikTok. Our handle for Instagram is _MSA KPhil.
Welcome back to this edition of One-on-One. We promised our viewers, Senator Goodridge, to look at youth and the ability to access real estate, to build wealth, and the accessibility of mortgages in Barbados. What are some of the issues that you're hearing in terms of on-the-ground responses from young people in terms of trying to access their first mortgage?
Well, for sure, young people are seeing that it is hard. They're not qualifying. And then we have young people who do not work for a company, and they are complaining that the bank is asking for a number of documentation, and they find much issue with that. And of course, we know that the bank wants to comply, of course, with any risk issues that they would encounter. So they're going to want as much documentation as possible. But I must say that people are having challenges in that area, and they want to have a home. They want to be home owners. So I would say, look, tell them ease up, make it easier for the persons who don't work for a company. Because of course, if you work for a company, the bank is going to tell you just bring in the job letter and show proof of income. But a person who owns their own business, then of course they're asking for more documentation, and it is hard. So I think that the requirements need to be varied, because we have to make way and recognize that we are in modern times. Many people may not work for a company, but we have to recognize that they have their own business. Don't make it too challenging for them, and to take that into consideration.
How do you think the banks allowing this kind of leeway and accessibility for young homeowners can help the economy generally and the construct of the Barbadian society?
Yes,
If there's that leeway.
Mhm. Well, I think it could help the economy for sure, because when people own a piece of the rock, they wouldn't feel as though they have to go overseas and live and then be in a whole hustle because they may not be a homeowner over there either. But we want to keep our people here, and we want to ensure that they feel as comfortable as possible. And I know that, yes, they can apply to the national housing. And I also love the idea of rent to own.
The rent to own by Minister Chris Gibbs quite recently. Yeah.
Yes, so rent to own, having that rent to own policy is really good, because then you can rent to own and have a opportunity to have your own home. So as long as, the government keeps on that path, I believe that it could benefit a lot of young people. And when it comes to the application process in terms of housing, they may need to be a bit more efficient so that persons don't have to be on a long list waiting for years and then still not becoming homeowners as soon as possible. It is essential to have your own home for your own security purposes and for building families. And we know that the government at one time encouraged persons to, expand in terms of having more children. So having a stable home would be beneficial to take that into consideration.
In another vein, what are some of the concerns that you're hearing from the ground from tenants?
Well, tenants are complaining in terms of the maintenance of some of the properties that they have rented, and also they are complaining about the high rent and the cost of living in terms of that aspect. Because rent now is high, and some tenants, when they go to properties to rent, people are asking for a first rent. You want security deposit, then you want last month rent, and it's hard because if your job, is not giving you a high salary, then, paying rent is going to be a bit of a challenge. So I think that the landlords need to really take that into consideration, the, cost of living.
But for a tenant signing a lease for the first time, what's one piece of advice you can give them from where you sit?
I would tell them to read every clause, and I would also tell them, don't wait till an issue occurs to then seek legal advice. The moment that you're about to sign a lease, you can take it to an attorney and say, hi, attorney, could you explain this lease to me? It would be worth it to pay for a consultation at that point of time than to wait for an issue to occur later, and then you need a lawyer, and then you have to spend a high amount of legal fees, a higher amount of legal fees at that point in time. Make sure that you read every clause and you understand what you are signing. Don't just sign it and not understand it, because then when an issue occurs, then you'll be the person who have to look for the money to pay an attorney.
There have been some issues that have arisen where the Airbnb and short-term rentals are concerned. So do you feel as if we need stricter regulations in terms of short-term rentals for some landlords as well?
Yes, that is something that we can consider, and we really have to get some more feedback on that area to really get into it and see what are the real issues, and then find suitable solutions. Don't just assume solutions out of the blue, but really speak to some of the Airbnb owners and to really formulate proper policies and legislations for that area.
So you've just spoken openly about, the defense of tenants and those paying rent. But for landlords specifically, what's your advice for them in terms of dealing with like the delinquent clients? Because it does happen.
Yeah, I know that it happens quite often. And I would say that sometimes, in the country, there could be a bit more patience sometimes. You can give people leeway in terms of if they have children and the children have nowhere to go in terms of eviction, right? But also equally, a landlord, I would tell them to seek legal advice. Of course, if you have a tenant who's in your home and they're not paying rent, it would not be a good experience for you to not have the finances that you need because someone is there in your home and you need to pay your bills too. So I would tell them to seek legal advice. They could also serve a letter notice on the individual and go down that road. But I'm hoping that in Barbados that there will be more mediation when it comes to landlord and tenant disputes so that people don't have to wait long in the court, to find some resolution when an issue occurs, between either party, either landlord or tenant. So mediation is one that we could consider here and having a tribunal deal with the landlord and tenant issues.
In terms of switching gears to policy, you believe that the current Tenant and Landlord Act is outdated where 2026 is concerned?
Of course, we are in modern times and a lot of these statutes are really old, and then we have to rely on what we call, the common law, where, when you read a statute and it doesn't cover a certain area, then of course we're going to rely on the common law. And I believe that the statute could be updated to cover the pressing issues now that landlords and tenants face today. But you should always, ensure that you don't have to deal with an old piece of legislation that does not cover current issues.
Switching gears just a bit, what's your advice for young people leaving BCC or UE, entering the corporate space and considering buying their very first property around the age of 22, 23, maybe even early 30s?
Okay, I would advise them, look, it is great to have your own property, but please remember that you have to have stable income, because I don't want to hear about another person who, is paying for a mortgage and then that property has to be sold because funding is not there. So I would tell them that proper planning is essential. Saving, make sure you have some savings so that when you purchase your property, you can handle the debt that will follow. And when you're purchasing a property, the bank will not tell you this, but I will tell them, make sure that the property that you're going to purchase is in a safe zone area, because there are some areas that are prone to robberies more. So ensure that also it's not a place that is close to the beach. I've been hearing a lot of complaints. Yes, beach houses look really nice and really alluring to the eye, but still there are a lot of complaints about, what affects the infrastructure of the house and how there's a lot of peeling of the walls and so on, how the salt affects the house. An engineer will be able to give you more detail. But even if they have to talk to an engineer when it comes to building proper housing, speak to the engineer, speak to the requisite parties that can help you when it comes to building your home, because you don't want to then have to expend extra money after you already have a high mortgage. And try your best to buy property that is affordable. Don't try to impress nobody and then you're left there in a lot of debt, or then you have to face the shame of your property being sold.
Mm-hmm. In terms of, we're within the season of emancipation, and there's been a lot of conversations surrounding reparations and economic enfranchisement. And we know that property is one of those safe pathways to wealth, especially within the African Barbadian community.
Mhm.
So, where do you stand in terms of Barbadians, young Black Barbadians owning a piece of the rock and the accessibility that can be provided to facilitate this process?
I wish I could make it easier, because then I would ensure that anytime that young people wanted to own a piece of the rock, the bracket would be less. So say persons own an income of $2,000 to $4,000, I would ensure that the persons who were in that bracket of say 2,500, that they will qualify, to own a piece of the rock. When they go to the bank, they will not have to be disappointed because no one will be telling them, well, you know, you only work for this amount of money, so we can't grant you this mortgage. No, so I would look at the bracket and give that greater consideration to ensure that more young people could qualify for Piece of the Rock.
Do you think cost of living in Barbados has to be what it is right now in the current state of the economy?
No, I think that Barbados needs to consider more investment planning. We have to consider things outside of tourism, manufacturing. We have to, you know, stop importing so much food and invest more in agriculture. We have to ensure that we grow crops and that we can sell those crops. We have to consider things like medical tourism, even cultural tourism, and considering that tourists can come here and see some of our wonderful treasures, see some of those areas with our national treasures. And cultural tourism will actually bring a lot of funding here. And also medical tourism will bring funding here, where people will come here to have operations and they will rush to Barbados to find our skillful medical practitioners, and they will pay for those surgeries, pay for those opportunities, you know, to have medical procedures done. I believe that things like that taken into consideration would bring money into our economy.
Rounding out our conversation, Senator, you've said so many important things, from women empowerment to how the crime situation should be dealt with, even in terms of the cost of living. But what legacy do you personally want to leave behind for the next generation of Barbadian women coming up within this island?
But for sure, I want you to recognize that being Barbadian is a treasure. We are not supposed to be at the back. And I want us to remember that we are supposed to be known internationally. It doesn't matter the size of the country that you're coming from. All that matters is the dream and acquiring that dream. So I want people to recognize that it doesn't matter where you start, but it matters where you finish.
Do you think there's anything more that can be done? And I know we mentioned that we were closing out the conversation, but to help Barbadians to think grander, bigger, more visionary, to carry
Yes.
more ambition wherever they go in the world. Barbadians are known as, you know, for their excellence and for their intellect as well. And it doesn't matter
yes.
what faction of society they've come from. So what say you?
Well, I want Barbadians to recognize that, look, we need to think bigger, for sure. Don't think that because Barbados is a small country that we have to think small. We could close our eyes and picture ourselves on an international stage, and we can pave the way and make the way in order to reach the place that we are dreaming of in our minds. So I do want Barbadians to think bigger. And I don't want us to just put ourselves in a box. I want us to think outside the box and to think more globally, think more internationally. So when persons only see themselves in Barbados, you know, I want them to start seeing themselves making a lifestyle outside of the country. And then you can come here. I'm not saying that they have to leave here to create a life, but I'm telling them, you know, to think more outside the box, think greater, think bigger, so that then your bank account can increase. Because the US dollar is more than Barbados.
Yeah.
So you don't only have to, you have to prepare for your future. So you don't only have to have a Barbados pension. If you want to go overseas and you want to get a green card overseas, then think big. Have a pension overseas, because I'm telling you, when you get old, all of that will contribute to your life. All of that will be beneficial to you.
All right. Thank you so much for your time, Senator Goodridge. It was a pleasure chatting with you on this edition
you.
of One on One.
Thank you so much for having me.
You're most welcome. We've come to the end of another one-on-one, this time with Opposition Senator and President of the Friends of Democracy, Senator Karina Goodridge. On behalf of my producer, I am Miss Ron Robinson. Until next time.